hard efforts of Caru and his wife Bobby. So, I've only been here, what, about a year? Is that long already?
Time flies.
Time flies, so we must be having fun. Because they say time flies when you're having fun. It's been fun. So, we encourage you all to try this chanting. When you come here, especially, I'm going to chant and you respond. Call and response. Most of you have not do that. But you can take it with you to chant in your own space. You can create a little sacred space in your house and sit and chant and see. The chanting purifies your whole existence in this world community. So, thank you all. Now we're going to hear something from Caru.
Although I've been here for a year, he's also in demand throughout the world. They call him to India regularly, to Europe. He was in Italy and France, and he just got back from Trinidad. So we're lucky here in Spanish Fork, Utah. We have Agni Dave. This is where he hangs his hat, so to speak. This is our email address for comments and correspondence. Website is there also. Everything's inspired by the teachings of Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Om Mangalam Jimadam Ganam Salakya Chatusudan Vedikam Yanatasmai Sri Dhirman Sri Chaitanya Visam Stapitam Yanabhutale This is a topic that some of you can relate to. It's called getting unstuck. Sometimes, I'm sure we've all felt trapped in our lives. Stagnant relationship, not going anywhere in the office, watching your goals gather dust up there on the shelf. And when you reach this stage in your life, it can be a heavy experience to go through. It can drain you. It can be an ache that you carry with you morning, afternoon, and night. The wonder comes up, is this all there is? I remember Deion Sanders, famous football player, after he got his third Super Bowl ring, he said, is this all there is? Isn't there any more than that? So it's not just for us ordinary people. It's just everybody reaches these points where they get stuck and stagnant. They feel they're rooted in one spot, unable to move forward. And when that happens, of course, it can be incredibly frustrating. Every one of us has felt it at some point in time, that subtle stickiness, almost like plaque in the arteries that seems to be tethering us to where we are. And yet our hearts yearn for something much, much more. So it's the invisible weight of the past, our message today it is, that anchors us, that moors us to the common, to the familiar, even if those shores, so to speak, are becoming increasingly barren and non-productive. But our thought is, what if this rough spot, this stagnant spot in our life isn't really a dead end, but it's a divine nudge to get out of our comfort zone, an invitation to let go of yesterday's burdens and step into something wonderfully new and fresh. So today we're going to dive into precisely that. How we can release the past, how we can consciously look forward to, anticipate, and be open to embracing the new things that Krishna or God wants to bring into our life, and tap into the ever youthful spiritual dynamic of Lord Krishna through the transformative path of what we call, and you'll be glad to hear this, most of you, LDS, You're looking around like, did I take a wrong turn somewhere? Loving devotional service. Yes, we're also LDS. We're after loving devotional service. And in the course of worshiping the vibrant, ever-fresh Lord, we feel our own perpetual youth and freshness being preserved. But let's ask ourselves, first of all, why is it that we often find ourselves glued, stuck to the same spot, unable to be open to or to embrace the newness that Krishna is always offering? It's the anchor. What is it that keeps a boat from flying across the seas? Because it's got a heavy anchor down there. That anchor causes us to cling to familiarity, mistaking a comfort zone for genuine security when in fact it is not at all. Like a worn out armchair. It feels safe. But that routine, can I tell you, keeps you from exploring the vibrant future that Krishna has planned for you. Getting stuck in old routines even when they no longer serve us just because they're known, just because they're familiar. This perceived, and I can't emphasize this enough, because we're meant to live on the edge. We're meant to stretch our faith. It is the most risky lifestyle to stay ensconced in the comfort zone. So what we're talking about is only perceived, but not actual safety. It's an illusion keeping us from stepping into the blessings that, in fact, our heart yearns for. And then when we fail to do that, especially later on in middle age, there's crushing regret. There's crushing grief over the person we could have become, but never became because we wanted to play it safe. Past choices, past mistakes, whispering, all of the what-ifs can paralyze our progress, replaying old scenarios in our mind, caught in a loop of ever-repeating self-incrimination. And this emotional burden becomes like a cloak of lead, keeps us from running towards the fresh opportunities that Krishna has out in front of us. It's like trying to swim with rocks in your pockets. The pull of the past drowns out the potential of the present. I like all those P's in there. Can I do that again? Is that okay? The pull of the past, those of you who are interested in nice little phrases, get your pencils out. The pull of the past drowns out the potential of the present. We shackle ourselves with old identities, old limitations. I'm not the kind of person who can do that. I'm just a C student. I'm below average. I've struggled with this all of my life. These are self-imposed, false definitions of ourselves, which imprison us behind invisible bars, restricting our growth. There's a kids program downstairs. This isn't going to work, I'll tell you that right now. Okay. We imprison ourselves with our past experience, and we forget in the course of that God's grace is limitless, and that grace can catapult us to transcend those self-imposed limitations. So the framework of all that I'm talking about is called bhakti. In bhakti culture, these anchors that keep us stuck, keep us from moving forward, they're called anarthas. They're contrary to our best interests. They're obstacles on the path of moving forward. They're impurities, they're attachments, they cloud our hearts and minds. Think of them as spiritual weeds, grown strong, taken deep root because of our past bad choices, our actions, and our desires. And now they're binding us to the material world, and they're obscuring our vision of the divine. Just like physical clutter, isn't it? Can fill up a room and it can prevent new things from entering. These anarthas clutter up our inner being, hindering our spiritual progress as well as our ability to recognize and embrace Krishna's new beginning. Now, through the purifying process of bhakti, or like I said, loving devotional service, the principal one of which is chanting the holy names of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and hearing his glories, what happens is the grip of these anarthas is slackened. We begin to free ourselves in order to move forward towards the radiant future that God has in store. Now here's a picture of Krishna in the center, and he's radiating, isn't he? The golden light that dispels shadows. And behind him, faded, shadowy, in fact, figures represent individuals burdened by their own anchors of the past, one looking back with regret and the other one weighed down. However, emanating from Krishna and flowing towards these figures are gentle streams of light and lotus petals which symbolize the purifying power of loving devotional service. That devotion will prompt Krishna to release the grip on us of past attachments and limitations and allow the radiant newness and freshness of the Spirit and the divine to assert himself forward. Now, what are the fruits of getting yourself unstuck and getting rolling again? To move in consort with the divine, to get into the middle of God's plans for your life, is to harvest a bounty which most people certainly cannot see nor even imagine. Peace blossoms from bhakti. An unshakable tranquility comes from bhakti, which is rooted not in fleeting circumstances, but in your aligning yourself with your higher purpose. Joy springs forth, an effortless melody of the soul, carried by the current of Krishna's will, no longer limited, no longer frustrated. From this surrender, from this tendering of your thinking, feeling, and willing, putting it on the altar of God, comes your purpose in life, your meaning, a humbling and yet completely exhilarating realization of being an instrument in a godly universal design. Each step in faith strengthens that very faith itself, and we begin to weave in our lives a tapestry of trust and a plan far greater than our own. Even setbacks transform from stumbling blocks into stepping stones. Even setbacks reveal themselves as having been carefully orchestrated by the Supreme Lord for our own spiritual growth. Resilience flourishes. Patience expands. We get sturdy shields put up against the quicksand of the vicissitudes of life. And in all of this, there's a beacon, which is the Lord within the heart, guiding us, directing us, whispering us. A life now vibrant and purposeful, a testimony to the power of surrender, an inspiration to those still caught in the shadows of the past, demonstrating for them the sweet taste of spiritual connection, which is a satisfaction so rich that the stale crumbs that this material world has to offer us lose all of their attractiveness. Imagine, just take a story here, a narration. Sarah, she poured years into her tech startup. She experienced initial success, built a team, but then due to market shifts beyond her control, the ventures failed spectacularly. She felt completely crushed, dwelling over and over again on the what ifs, the lost investments, the public perception of her failure. What had once been a success, that very success, now seemed like a taunt to her, and her future seemed bleak. She seemed to have been defined by this one monumental setback, lived her life in regret and self-doubt. During this period of despondency, a friend introduced her to an online bhakti meetup group. She started attending Bhagavad Gita classes. She made it a regular daily morning practice to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And she started doing community service, which she calls seva, in a garden. Initially, the garden was just a distraction, but gradually, she started as she gardened coincidentally with bhakti. She felt a cleansing take place in her heart. The chanting had purified her from those false identities, from those false regrets. And she'd come around now to accept the past with equanimity. She stopped defining herself or seeing herself as a failed CEO. And one day, while volunteering, which we all agree is a far cry from tech, she noticed that everybody was following her suggestions. They seemed to thrive under her leadership. In this happy chaos of volunteers harvesting tomatoes, a thought bloomed in Sarah's mind, as vibrant, you might say, as the surrounding flowers. What if, here's a different what if, because of the purification of the chanting, what if she could channel her organizational prowess, her tech-savvy brain, not towards maximizing profits, but towards something more truly meaningful? What if she could use her skills to build sustainable solutions for the community? And that idea took root and grew rapidly. She envisioned a nonprofit, a bridge between the abundance of local food producers and the issue of food insecurity. And using her tech background, she began to develop user-friendly apps that would connect small-scale farmers and community gardens directly with local residents, food banks, and schools. These apps would facilitate the distribution of fresh, healthy food, reducing waste and ensuring that everyone had access to nutritious meals. And you see her in the garden there with a nice little billboard of Krishna playing his flute. What happened? As a complete career shift, complete departure from the lucrative world that she'd once known. But as she poured her energy into this new venture, a profound sense of purpose filled that void that had been growing within her. She was still leveraging her organizational talents and tech expertise, but now they're fueled not by self-aggrandizement, but by compassion for others and with a genuine desire to make a difference. That community garden, which had once simply been an escape, had unexpectedly given her a whole new direction for her life, one in which she could help the community and practice her Krishna consciousness at the same time. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Imagine with me for a moment life as a grand recipe. Now, you wouldn't bake a cake just by throwing all the ingredients together willy-nilly and expecting it to come together, a tasteful product within 5 minutes. Patience is a key ingredient for anyone who's cooking. You add the flour, you add the sugar, you add the egg replacer. Each step in its own time. You mix it, you knead it, and then you let it rise for some time. It's the same with our goals and with our dreams. We have to wait for things to develop naturally. Time could arguably be the most important ingredient in many a la carte preparations. Just like a good dish needs to simmer, bake in the oven, or dough needs to rest, some things simply require the passage of time. You can't rush a sunrise or force a flower to bloom instantly. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Kalo Shmi, time I am. So we have to learn to trust Krishna in the form of time that he will bring about the desired result. His timing is, quite frankly, much better than ours. We might have our own time frame, our own idea for what constitutes a perfect outcome or an ideal timeline. But sometimes God has a higher purpose, a bigger, more intricate plan than what we could ever understand with our pea-like brains. He's like the master chef who knows exactly when to take the dish out of the oven for it to be truly delicious. His plan and his timing are always better than anything we could cook up ourselves. And if we simply trust him, what he does in his own way, in his own time, the resulting product will be unbelievably, unimaginably relishable and delicious. So therefore, when things feel slow, when they feel uncertain, remember, it's not a finished product. It's in progress. So do your part and have patience. Trust that the divine timing will bring about the most beautiful and fulfilling results. Look, if you will, with me on the altar here. Krishna playing his flute. He's not old. God would never be old. He's all powerful. There isn't any power that could make him grow old. We grow old because of the passage of time on these material bodies. God hasn't got a material body, nor is he subject to the fluctuations of time. He's always fresh, he's always vibrant, he's always dynamic, he's never stuck in the past. He's unceasingly moving. His very nature is newness and freshness. So if we stay in touch with him, especially by chanting his name, we're also going to be fresh, like plugging into an infinite source of energy, a connection that helps us stay youthful, not just in body, but more importantly, in the spirit and in the mind. And the best part, that freshness doesn't just have to do with you. It doesn't just stay with you. It spills over to your family, to your spouse, to your co-workers. Chanting, connection with God can bring newness and vitality to your marriage, to your family life, and even to your career. It's like a constant infusion of positive energy that keeps everything vibrant. So if you're looking for a way to keep things fresh and lively in all the areas of your life, consider the simple, powerful practice of chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. And yes, it's easy to get stuck in the past. We all have things we'd rather forget, mistakes we've made, old baggage that we carry around. But think of it like this. God is always there, always poised to give us a chance to start over with a clean slate. It's like seasons changing. Spring always comes after winter, always comes after autumn. Spring always comes bringing new color, new life, freshness, and rejuvenation. So if we want to catch that in our life, that freshness, there's a few things that can help us. The first of which is to let go of what's behind you. It's done, finished. You can't change it by dwelling on it. It's just going to keep you stuck. Secondly, live your life open to what God has in store for you. It might not look, when it comes, like what you'd expect. That's why I say you have to be open. But there's always new things to learn and to experience. Think again about how the seasons work. Time for planting, time for growth, time for weeding, time for harvesting. Similarly, there's a time for growth, there's a time for letting go. Our lives have cycles too. Understanding what cycle you're in can make a big difference. Some people play a very important part in our life, like our coach and our parents, but they'll not always be there. When they move on, we have to learn how to encourage ourselves and enthuse other people as we have been enthused ourselves. And there are simple things that we can do, very simple things, like praying, like reading scripture, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, spending a few quiet moments, a time out in your busy day to take 10 deep breaths or do a stretch or do some yoga. These are powerful things, but none is more powerful than the chanting the names of God. Chanting the names of God is the best way to focus your mind and feel closer to that freshness, which is the all-powerful Supreme Personality of God. But what's a small thing that we can do right now? Maybe just taking a breath, saying a prayer, listening to some uplifting music, participating in the kirtan that we're just about to have, reaching out to somebody you care about, and over and above all of that, saying the names of the Lord. Whatever name resonates with you. If you have a name for God, which is bona fide, which is not Krishna, that's fine. Any bona fide name of God will keep that freshness in your life. Will keep you moving forward. But we prefer chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We all get stuck sometimes. There's no exceptions. Best example that we know of is that of Arjuna in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God. He was a mighty warrior, and he was on the edge of a battlefield in an epic called the Mahabharata. And although he fought many, many, many battles in his lifetime, he was completely at home on the warfield. There's nothing strange or unfamiliar. You might say he'd spent his life on the warfield, but in this particular instance, he was looking across at his teachers, at his family members, as his cousin brothers. So he became overwhelmed with moral dilemmas, with apprehension, with fear, and to the point of paralysis. This great, powerful, experienced veteran warrior began to cry. His shoulders slumped, and he actually dropped his bow, said to Krishna, I will not fight. Then Krishna, who is not just the chariot driver of Arjuna, but he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the beginning, the middle, the end, the source of everything, come down to serve his best friend in the role of a chariot driver and advisor. Krishna then began to pour into Arjuna, not sympathy, not, oh, you poor boy, you want to take a break, no, he poured into him wisdom. First thing he says, Gata Samzagatam, you are mourning, you're all upset, you're tied into knots, you're crying, you're paralyzed, you're dysfunctional over that which is not worthy of grief. You're all focused on the bodies of your opponents, but they are not their bodies. They're spirit souls. So Krishna dismantled, during the course of the 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna's attachment to his old ideas about identity, about family, about duty. Krishna revealed not to Evahujatu Nishana. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings. Krishna revealed the eternal self, the nature of time, and the importance of righteous action, doing your duty on the path of devotion. So through Krishna's love and patience and divine wisdom, Arjuna was able to break free from his mental chains. Embraced what? The new. Embraced his ordained purpose in life. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The truth is that Krishna's always there. Krishna's never holding things back. He's always poised. He's always ready, no matter what stage of your life you're in terms of your physical body or your mental attitude. Doesn't matter. Krishna is always ready to shower us, his beloved parts and parcels, with new life, a new sense of purpose and joy. All we need to do is take the first step into the flow of God's grace. That fresh start is there for each and every one of you. It's there right now. So if you will take that step towards Krishna or God in faith and love, it is said, you take one step towards God through doubting's dim, God will advance 1,000 miles in blazing light to him. One step towards God, that's all we ask today. In exchange, he takes 1,000 steps towards you in this life, and in the next life, he takes you back to home, back to God. So thank you very much for your kind attention. And if any of that made sense to you, you're invited to raise your hands along with me, and we can say together, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much. And we're going to do some chanting by Agni, and then if you have any questions, which I hope you do, we'll give you an opportunity to ask them downstairs during dinner in about 10-15 minutes time. Thank you.
Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Jai Shri